So for item 8.1B, it's already there, but it looks like it was the wrong attachment. So this is the correct attachment, 8.1B. My great apologies for that. And Chair, did you want to talk about that email or?
Well, I was going to include it, I think I'm on here to give an update from the Ferry Advisory Council, and it's part of the minutes really, it's an extension, so I'll do it then. That's 9.1, I'll just include this email we've got here. Any other comments? Oh,
I don't know if this should be a separate item or if I could cover it in the staff update, but Sophie, our communications coordinator, has quite a few questions about the upcoming refit.
yeah, I've got that that meeting as well, was discussed. So we can probably connect there. Where do you want to put that, in 9.1?
In the interest of time,
Oh, did you want to read it for it?
bumped up.
Yeah. What was your
If I can make the
relevance?
8:30 ferry, that would be very happy.
So if I had the item of 10:50 sailing on November 11th, I don't know if we want to talk to David's.
The only,
You said we could talk about that as well.
Just because this
Is
is
it heavy?
full,
Well,
this is
that's
not,
fine.
he takes a long time.
Okay, no,
Or you'll take a long time with his
that's fine.
interesting.
And I'm interested to hear if people do think it's worth discussing as well, but I'm happy to defer it to
Remembrance Day
December.
Ferry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally fine.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
this
have
is
we dealt
cool.
with,
It's fine.
and we like them first? Should we put that at 5?
Somewhere earlier? I don't know. Steph?
Yeah, so where do you want to put it? Why don't you make it
Part of the update?
part of your staff update, though you're the receiving the update, but
Whatever works.
make it part of that?
Well, I think you're really just going to be connecting maybe me or Melanie with Sophie. Probably.
Sure. Part of the staff update, I'll bring up all of her concerns.
Perfect.
Make note of them.
And so we're going to wait for the next meeting for Remembrance Day?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's not till January, right?
Remembrance Day?
the next meeting.
No, the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay, that would be great in January, because I imagine their June
Seven.
schedule is pretty soon.
Or you can sign it in now if you want.
You're right. We'll see if we finish, I guess.
Yeah, see what time it is.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Can we get them?
Second.
There we go. Second, all in favor? Minutes of, adoption of the minutes from the last meeting?
Yep.
Any comments? No comments? I'll get a motion to approve or adopt minutes.
Sure, I'll do that. I forget, I don't vote in the APC, but I can do.
You vote here.
Okay.
Yeah. Chop liver in the APC.
Yeah,
All in favor? Moving on to public comments. Are there any public comments? No. Action items. Sure.
So draft response to member of the public email regarding light indicating ferry arrival. Is that?
I think that was
Illy.
Illy.
Yeah.
And I think it may have gone in. Did that happen?
Did she report to you at all
I think so.
for tonight?
I did speak to her before this meeting, but not about that. I think she did send out an email on that topic.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that was done.
Okay. Attend alternative ferries event and report back to the committee.
yeah. What was that? I'm trying to think what that was.
No,
I think that was the Horseshoe Bay Terminal redevelopment engagement.
so that can happen in the, you got anything to say in the ferry update?
Yeah, well, we can include it in the update, but my rants about that.
Okay, Matthew is not here.
Oh, yeah.
Does anyone know about Harbor Arrow? Okay, ask him next time. Counselor, follow up with the person in the,
Yep,
you did follow up?
I did. And I talked to Ely about it, and she then followed up, I think. So it was about handicapped person not getting on the bus because the bus was full. And it was to get the details of that and who, not necessarily who it was, but yeah, it was a little bit, it was, one of the key things is it wasn't a wheelchair issue, and because that was one of the questions we were wondering, was it the ability to get a wheelchair on the bus, or wasn't it? It was just that the bus was full. And so somebody couldn't get on, but they happened to be someone who was handicapped in some way, but no, not a wheelchair person. And so she was gonna follow up with that person. And Ely, I told Ely about it, she was, I guess, going to follow up, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I think it's been dealt with.
Okay. Work with Clayton Watson to coordinate a delegation to council. That has gone to Bonnie, hasn't it, Emma? Emma's been,
Bonnie has seen it.
and Bonnie's talked to him and given him some parameters, and he was gonna come back to her with a business case that she would present to council, and she's still waiting for him, is what she told me. Which
Okay,
didn't-
I have not been updated by Bonnie, so that you
That's
have
the
the latest
Vancouver
update.
Adventure Tours that was on the phone. Yeah, so Bonnie was, she was a little skeptical, to be honest, but she did give him parameters, and the ball's in his court to come back. Okay. Another draft response.
This is the same,
But this is the
No,
same,
this is the,
the light, I mean,
Oh.
that came up at the FIC meeting, right?
Yes, yes.
so that could be part of
so
that.
that'll be part of the update.
Okay, Tyler?
And that's similar,
Same,
same
yeah.
thing, and
Oh, that FAC's gonna be big.
Yeah.
I did bring that up, we did talk about that. So
Okay.
that was done, number 3 was done.
And Emma drafted communications piece regarding notifying citizens by telephone for persons with disabilities.
Yeah, and that was a follow-up to the
The first one.
first
Yeah.
one, yeah, which I have not done yet.
Okay, I'm going.
Yeah.
And Illy, this is the same one, okay.
Yeah.
So I might, I'll just check with Illy on that one.
That issue of the bus being full, and someone's letter, that's coming, that's part of the agenda, I think, isn't it? That letter from,
Capacity
Adam
concerns,
Logie?
no, not Adam, Adam's
Oh.
like, was
John Kerr,
John Kerr, yeah.
I have 7.2.
Yeah, so we talked about
Perfect. Okay.
You want updates?
Updates.
All right, staff update. I apologize, I've fallen quite behind on the transportation plan action items. So I have a number of them to complete still for this year. I understand this is the last meeting for this year, so I can't report on them finishing this year, but I'm going to try. The most important one, I think, for the committee is I'm supposed to bring forward a progress report based on the metrics that we all agreed on, as well as a work plan for 2020. So those will have to come beginning of next year. Aside from that, Sophie has a bunch of questions. She has actually sent to Darren Gwinnett with BC Ferries and did not get any answer. She sent it beginning of November. So she was wondering if TAC might have more information for her. So these are her questions. Will Going Queen be put into service again as the replacement vessel? Just to understand the capacity. Will BC Ferries be offering reduced fee parking in Horseshoe Bay during the refit? Will BC Ferries be offering assured loading for vehicles with 4 or more passengers on select late afternoon sailings?
Those were all dealt with at back.
Excellent.
If you were what?
Pass
They're all
that.
dealt with
Yes,
at the
yes,
ferry
yes.
advisory. Yes, yeah.
Oh my God,
They're all
that's the whole
yes.
meeting is this.
They're all yeses?
Yeah.
They're all yeses.
It's
Okay.
intended to be exactly the same as last year.
Except one of the options that we had in last year, 2018, she said we were advertising or telling the public that the water taxi operated by Mike Shannon was an option. That's no longer an option. And also Crippen Park, the Bowfest parking was available last year, but she hasn't heard of any agreement with Metro Vancouver this year to
Okay.
use that parking. So she was wondering if that was discussed.
That hasn't been discussed.
Just anticipating extra parking will be needed.
Yeah.
People can't take their cars.
Do you think BC Ferries coordinated that last time?
That's a good question. I was,
I don't know who did that.
yeah, I don't know, I don't think I was on BidTech at that time, maybe I was, I don't know, but anyway, I don't remember.
There was no refit last year, was there? No.
No, it was
2017.
2017, and she was one of the year.
whatever it was.
Because I don't,
Every
my
2
channel
years.
wasn't offered last year either. Yeah, so she's just wondering if BC Ferries has thought of a alternative for passenger only. I doubt it, to get to that.
Nothing. No. Nothing's come up on that.
Okay. So,
But on the parking, we should probably have turn that into an action item.
Yeah.
To check with Maureen, who's on the Parks Committee.
Okay.
To see whether she remembers if BC Ferries do that last year, or did we do that, or I have no idea. But it's an interesting idea.
And who would like to?
They
do
have those
that?
new lots now, though, that people park in. Like 2 years ago, they never had those lots.
That's true.
New data that would expose things.
but
Yeah.
they're pretty full already,
Oh,
as
true.
our parking counts have shown.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys want me to follow up?
I'll follow up with Maureen.
Okay. I think in terms of the major projects, the multi-use path has been on hold, and we've done a feasibility study, so that was kind of anticipated extra work. The feasibility study has come back and concludes that to be consistent with best practices and the most cost-effective option for an active transportation facility on Bowen Island would be a multi-use path along the main roads, as we had determined, on the north side, as we also had proposed. So it's essentially supporting the multi-use path that's proposed in the transportation fund. It does have cost estimates in there that total $9.5 million. It has a 40% contingency, and it's also using very conservative unit pricing for all of the work, especially retaining walls, which are 3 to 4 times higher than standard pricing. So it's a very, very conservative estimate at 9.5.
What was our road estimate? Do you remember what we had for the whole thing out?
Originally, it was more like 2 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's that first corner, the first zigzag that we had the trouble with? Did they give an estimate for that?
No, they did not review the pricing. They're basing the pricing for the remainder of the multi-use path on the phase 1 tender that we got. And the phase 1 tender was very high because of the unknown, of the risk, the high level of risk and uncertainty. Yeah, so they're asking for about $60,000 to do survey work to help reduce that contingency and make the cost estimate more accurate. So these are all pretty big numbers we're talking about. It's going to council beginning of December for discussion and consideration of budget for next year.
When you say going to council, does that mean just to whether we still want to proceed with this? Because this is a way different number, obviously. Is it
Yes.
even? I think we should. I'm a huge supporter of the path. I haven't even considered the $9 million budget, but what else could you do with $9 million in terms of making Bowen Island an active transportation hub? Like, I think the conditions have changed so much. We should maybe go back to square one of
Yeah.
whether this is a good idea or not.
That will be the discussion. If we do, I guess optimistically, if we do more survey work and we're able to reduce the contingency and reduce the unit pricing that was used for the cost estimates on more realistic conditions that are not as high risk as phase 1, my initial estimate is that it could come in at about 4 to 5 million, which is still pretty high. And to spread that over the next 15 years, it'll still be a pretty significant cost per year, but not entirely impossible.
And did they find other tricky bits I mean, obviously that first zigzag corner is just really bad.
I'd say the main section that could result in a significant cost is a section that doesn't appear to be in our road right of way.
Where is that?
I think it is right near past the nursery. So near that bend, is it Gardner Lane?
Yep.
Near
Gardner
that
Lane area.
bend. Yeah, but this is based on cadastral, which is also very off, as we've discovered when we actually do survey on the ground. But like an entire section is like completely off of our road right of way, so that could be very problematic. Yeah, that would be the worst section. The remainder, they haven't really identified anything that we haven't already seen, expected. Yeah, so that is definitely discussion for council to decide how to move forward. Cardina?
So, sorry, just a bit more on that. So we were able to get a delay, we had a whole bunch of funding that we got from 2 different groups, and we were able to delay that for a year. But if we, I mean, obviously, all that funding could disappear if we don't
Yeah,
start doing something.
it has a deadline of project completion end of 2020.
So what we could do, sorry to be taking time here, because this would end up being a council decision, but maybe we could make a recommendation that, I mean, if there are parts of it, like the section along John Reed subdivision, or development rather, he's supposed to pay for that, and it's on his land, so we can do it, it's not gonna be that hard. So if we do a section, instead of doing the really expensive part right now, we go find another part and pay for it, just to get something done and to use that money.
But we can't use that funding for a different project, a
We
different
can't?
phase, no.
It has to be the same.
It has to be what was submitted for construction, so the preliminary design. But that brings a good point. For some reason, Urban Systems lumped in John Reed's phase in the cost estimates, so the 9.5, almost $1 million of that should be under John Reed's section,
Right.
which is quite long, actually.
Yeah.
Quite large. So, but still, 8.5 is still pretty big.
Yeah.
So,
So we can't move it along, that's the
yeah, well, and also on the upside, TransLink funding is increasing each year, at least for the like the next 3 years, and it'll be 75% cost funding moving forward for a small municipality, which we qualify for. We are also guaranteed next year 90,000 in addition to what we've been approved. And I've applied for competitive funding of about 70,000. So if we get that, then we'll max out our 75% cost share out of the now current budget of 750,000.
Okay, so at the council meeting, then you'll have all this
I'll
kind of.
have all the numbers
all
down.
this to see if we can at least do something.
Yeah, so if we do move forward with it, depending on, our cost share would be 1 to 200,000,
Okay.
and I can't remember what that. Oh, it depends if we get the competitive funding, which our chances aren't great. So if we don't get it, then it'll be closer to 200,000 would be our cost share.
All right, thanks.
Which council meeting? December 9th. December 9th.
And then the other update would be for Cardina, which is wrapping up, the construction's wrapping up this week. They're going over any deficiencies next week. So I think everyone's seen it's coming together. We still need to put in some accessible connections for Cove Commons and Caring Circle. So I haven't really been involved with the project, but now that they're having these issues with the accessibility, they've asked me to coordinate with a landscaper, probably use Bowenshire, to help connect the sidewalk instead of the big drops we're seeing right now. So I hope that can be done this year, but the current project budget didn't actually account for that work. Oh, hey, look, beautiful.
This is part of the parking discussion, but that's the concern is.
Oh, they didn't.
it's the-
Yeah, there's no curb letdown. I had asked for one during the design, and as you can see, nothing got put in. Yeah, we've had some staff flux,
Changes.
public works, so
Mm.
stuff got fallen through the cracks there. Yeah, and then the lighting is also supposed to be installed after all the construction is done. So that's the latest update.
I did that roundabout, it was so exhilarating. To
Was
drop off
it?
your teenager and then just drive and you're not breaking any laws.
You're not
Start
doing
your
an
day
18-point
legal.
turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be good. Once the line painting's in too, it'll be parallel parking on two sides. There just won't be room for people to do their random U-turns. And also with the intersection, the curb comes out quite a bit now, which should also deter people doing random U-turns in the intersection.
Okay, thank you. Council referrals?
The leader on this, do you want to take the lead on this? Is there a
Yeah,
question? Never
That's,
came in. Oh, here we go.
What page is that there? Here it is.
That's on the
Page 9 and
screen, too.
19. Well, that's actually. On it. I guess the name.
Page 12. Sorry, this is from Campbell's City Story, actually.
That's the parking.
That's the parking.
Yeah, no, it's a parking lot. So Adam's email, it might be, oh, here we go. No.
I don't know whether you nine.
Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead.
Yeah, 9 of 19 is
Sorry.
council saw and referred here. But Adam, I mean, I remember, well, he just, you all saw the email, it was in the online part anyway. Basically, he said, yeah, you can find it, Steph?
Yeah.
There we go,
Okay, they're okay.
yeah. So it's a lack of safe lighting at the intersection of Trunk Road and Miller Dorman kind of thing. And apparently there's one street light in the intersection located at the northeast corner, so that's northeast. Oh, so right,
That's Stacy Beamer's.
Stacy's, yeah, that place, is it a street light there, or? I sort of didn't even know we had a street light there at all. I should have gone and looked at it in the dark.
When I think of it, I just see light on the other side of the street from the buildings.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, just basically it's too dangerous, and it's true that in the morning people are kind of zipping through that corner and trying to make ferries and stuff like that, and cars going this way and that way. He talks about nearly getting hit a couple of times. And I'm not sure which crossing that he was doing. Maybe he was parking his car at the area 1 and block 2 or something like that, and walking across towards Stacy's place.
Well, I know I had to hitchhike home one night because
Yeah.
my car wouldn't start. And
Yeah.
it was parked in the
That
community
part,
lot. I couldn't see a thing,
Yeah,
not a thing.
Is this at the
It was
intersection?
pitch black. It was about 11 o'clock at night. It was
Yeah.
pitch black.
yeah.
Was it at the intersection?
Yeah.
Okay. There is a street light on one of the corners.
Yeah.
I believe the issue is more the geometry of that intersection, that it has really bad sight lines.
Mm.
Yeah.
But would lighting help those
Yeah.
sight lights? Not really.
Not sure, and with our night sky policy, it would be hard to put in additional lighting.
How
That's-
about
yeah.
something on the ground?
It is, there's a lot of ambient light though, because the pub is lit up. The whole other side of the street is actually lit up, but I often see people hitchhiking, and there's maybe even a hitching station there, right?
Yeah.
Because people come off the ferry and then they do walk up the hill and hitchhike out to Eagleville.
That's what I was
And
doing.
it's super dark and
Yeah.
dangerous there. So the whole end, like, there's enough natural light in that area anyway. I wouldn't think that would be an issue, other than no one lives in that area until you get to the police station first.
Yeah.
And then you get some houses
It's
up.
just there is
the hill.
activity there, because there's that stop, and then there's people going to the parking lot,
Yeah.
walking into the parking lot, and that parking lot holds a lot of cars.
Yeah,
So that's potentially a lot of people at night.
yeah,
So I think it's a good idea.
I do too. It's a much safer way, it feels like a safer way to get to that parking lot at night than through the woods, where there's no lighting, and
possible get his guns,
Yes.
come face to face.
Oh, really?
So,
Oh, yeah.
but our night sky, what's our night sky policy exactly? Because they have lights down, you know, at the other corner, Guardian
The
corner.
municipal street lights.
Am I going to find it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess one of the problems is that law is temporary,
Yeah, that's right.
right? So
That's right.
why spend money on infrastructure
The
if
park-
it's going to be privately owned and operating somewhere?
The parking lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to think of how to increase lighting at the there is an actual street light, it's large overhead. Wondering if maybe like a lower pedestrian level
Yeah.
light. He also made the comment about the amber color not being very effective, but there's also like the current best practices, the impact on wildlife is like the best with amber lighting, it minimizes the impact, so.
Do you know what it's in? I'm not seeing night sky policy in this, Emma. Is that vernacular? Is there an actual?
Oh, yeah, what is it?
Oh,
Dark, no, it is night sky, but it has a funny, night sky is
It's-
like the, known as name, whatever.
so ring skies, winner gets a candy.
Yeah, we're working.
It's policy, not bylaw.
Can't find it.
Okay, let me do a one of these.
What about the flashing crosswalk at the school? Are
Ooh.
flashers easier than the lighting?
That's what I was
It's-
thinking of,
It's
a
under a
pedestrian
bylaw, it's not a
crossing.
policy, it's a bylaw.
A pedestrian crossing? Kind of a button to push?
Yeah, so we've got a button to push in. For the other one, there's just a thing to stop cars. There's no lights for people to cross or to help them see
Right.
where the ground is or whatever.
Yeah.
But there is something to stop cars from whacking into them.
So you want a flashing beacon? Pedestrian control flashing beacon?
I guess my feeling, I know there's, like, one of the things I really like about Bowen is how dark it is at night for sleeping and things like that. But for walking up to where your car is or trying to, you know, I wouldn't mind having a little bit of light. And since it's an area where there are not a lot of people trying to sleep, and there is the pub and the light around the pub. I mean, there are some homes right above the pub, there are some homes
Village
above
Square.
the square.
Yeah.
But there's all the lighting, the ambient lighting that's
It's
around
under-
there anyway.
Sure, it's under regulatory bylaws.
Ah, there it is. Thank you, Emma.
Outdoor lighting, and then it's sky, just outdoor lighting on municipal. Got it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
To prohibit the
Oh, sorry. You want me to-
causing unnecessary outdoor light, blah, 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 unnecessary property design light, healthcare, blah, blah, result in this and that bad things. Whereas, blah, 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 whereas these are, now there, do we have safety in there at all? Does that respect the health, safety, and welfare of the general public? Good, okay. And with protect the integrity of the dark night sky, yes.
What triggered this? Was this the turf field that triggered this bylaw?
I don't,
The lights on the.
I don't know.
2010?
I agree with preserving the night sky and the
Yeah.
darkness, but
Yeah, me too.
in an urban,
Yeah.
that's the most urban intersection of this
Yeah,
island.
that's right,
And I think it deserves to be lit up,
yeah.
So it's
at
not-
least by choice, you
It's
know,
not
by
saying they're
something
not
you
loud,
pushed.
it's, if you scroll down, Steph,
Yep.
it just gives, like certain considerations. So you can't have uplighting, it has to be a certain type of light. It's very dated, there's definitely advances in lighting technology now that it doesn't
Natural habitat.
consider, but.
Yeah,
But the issue is crossing.
Well, there you go, look
Not
at
just being
226,
walking
to
to the
ensure
park,
that sufficient lighting
crossing.
can be provided where needed to promote safety, visibility, and security.
Boom.
so I think it fits into that,
Yeah.
under that, but then it needs to be shielded in the way that we describe and so on.
Well, cost and infrastructure wise, what's the bigger impact? A permanent light on a tower or the flashing beacon at the school? Because isn't that solar powered?
It's so
It's
Yeah.
solar powered, yeah.
I don't, was it 7,000 for the one at the school?
It was
I thought
installed
quite cheap.
before I was here, and ICBC actually helped pay for it.
Okay.
We could probably get ICBC funding for this too. If it's a
Yes, I think
traffic
part of
signal.
it is visibility, part of it is just awareness that somebody's even trying to cross,
Yeah.
especially when a ferry's unloading.
Yeah.
And when you're waiting to go left and you're waiting for car after car to pass, often when you see your vision is so much on when's the last car. Someone walks by and you're trying to make a left onto Miller, it's
Yeah.
very dangerous.
Yeah.
I have to
It
admit
amazes
myself,
me
it's
there
very-
are not more accidents
On a
with
rainy night
pedestrians
with
here.
this glare from lights
You're
too, it's
glare from
really
lights.
bad.
Super
Yeah.
focused on the lights coming at you.
Even
Yeah,
when
right.
people cross the like Dorman or like Trunk Road going like to the pub, it's hard to see them.
Yeah.
And you're coming off the ferry in the rain.
Yeah. So are we thinking two are needed? One to cross from, like, across Miller on the north side, and then one to cross Trent on.
Yeah, I guess
Ferry
we probably
side.
need 3 at least.
That might be bad for ferry unloading.
So, but if we were to make a
Oh,
recommendation
that-
that we, you know, protect the safety by having some lighting, we would then send it to, like, we wouldn't design it, try to design it in this meeting. we'd send it
That's like
back
a
to-
recommendation to have lighting of some sort in the
Yeah.
corner.
But is the recommendation for pedestrian safety, like an awareness that pedestrians crossing, or for general ambient lighting?
I think the orange lights are very effective. The ambient lighting, I think, is not gonna help people crossing the road. It would be nice for people to have, but.
Hi, Jason.
Hi, guys, sorry, Blake, just finished up the meeting, and where's she back?
Thank you so much for calling in. We are on item 6.1, which is regarding the email regarding lighting at the corner of Trunk Road and Miller Road at Four Corners.
Right,
Yeah.
thank you.
So just discussing the options of either about making a recommendation to either add ambient light via street light or a pedestrian activated sort of crossing signal of some sort. If you'd like to weigh in at any time.
I'll catch up over the next couple minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know, I don't have any preference, I'm not sure.
Maybe we should all go down and take a look at some point.
I
Yeah.
don't think this is urgent. This could be a preliminary discussion. There's also,
Or we could ask staff to investigate it and provide options.
staff has been tasked with that, Public Works.
Yeah.
Yeah, or, yeah.
Has Glenn,
No, I chased him around for sure. In fact, I'm just putting this in an email. He was gonna try to get us comments from Public Works
Oh,
before this
already?
meeting, I
Before
thought.
the meeting, oh, wow.
I thought
That would
might be
be.
helpful, but
it would be.
we didn't have
Should
it.
we just make an action item for us to each consider this for the next meeting?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Go down there in the dark and experience it.
Yeah, go across the street.
It's dark all the time, it's easy, right? Don't ask me to go down in the middle of the summer.
And then hopefully we'll also get a recommendation, get some, since Public Works has been asked to have a look at it, and we'll have something.
You have to go at night when a ferry's unloading, wearing dark colors with a small child.
When it's raining.
In the rain.
When it's
In
raining.
the rain.
I can lend a small child if anyone needs.
Yes, I have two. One that likes to run out in traffic right
Oh,
now.
I had one of those.
Oh, God.
Oh, I miss those. Does anyone want to, do you want me to just get back to the email writer and just say we're on the job and it'll be another month? Who was the,
Adam Logie?
It was out of luck.
email address too?
We want to tell them to have a flashlight and light clothes
Uh,
and reflective clothing.
I can, oh, you want to do that?
And I know, but it would be good to send a note back saying, you know, we took it seriously. We're going to investigate further and ask from staff, help from staff to see whether it should be, you know, a street light type of thing or a crosswalk type of warning, or perhaps both.
Okay.
Maybe then weigh in.
Yeah. Maybe we misinterpreted.
Yeah.
So
So that's tough.
parking in the Cove. So I think these are the photos, right?
Yeah, the first, it's kind of two items squished into one. One is a recommendation from council which is basically saying we're building on area 1, we're building on lot 3, that's gonna leave a lot of people without parking. Do you guys have any ideas on what to do with that? It's the last section of this recommendation.
Yeah.
Sorry, David, you could have spoken.
Yeah, so there it comes to page 10 of 19, and really the last, it was moved and seconded.
And then we want to talk about the handicap parking by the caring circle.
And
So-
I've been briefed on that by her.
Okay, so you sort of put them on the same item.
Okay, and I can speak to the, I think, accessibility issues with the caring circle, because I was actually just talking with the landscaper about how to address that.
So I can say a little bit, if everyone has a look at that, what's perhaps important is that I missed that meeting, and Councillors Fast and Wine and opposed. So parking in the Cove is a contentious issue, and I chatted with Rob about this, and his concern is that in a time when, we're trying to address climate change and move people towards active transportation and taking the bus and all that sort of stuff, that providing more parking in the Cove acts against that. Councillor Nicholson's position, though, is that for people to take, say, Peter's bus or the express bus, if you're lucky enough to live on a bus route to get down to the Cove, that's fine. But if you don't, and probably half the folks on the island don't, then what are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
So you need to park in the Cove in order to then walk on the ferry, kind of thing. So it's a clash between those two different sort of perspectives. So that's on whether there should be parking at all, or because we're going to lose a parking lot, so what do we do? But that was a temporary parking lot, and we didn't have that before. It's also what Robin probably would say. So
I think a lot of people probably drive down now who take Peter's bus because you can't transfer your bus ticket. Like you have to pay Compass and then you have to pay for Peter's bus, where you could drive down and park for free.
and the other point, of course, because I did this a lot, that's going now so much, but when you come back, if you take the water taxi, there's no bus. So it means.
And someone like me, I have to go pick up 2 kids after,
Yeah.
so to like wait for the bus, 20 minutes to get home, and then go pick up kids just adds another
Yeah, I'm good.
45 minutes to your
Yeah.
evening when
Not good at all.
it's already 5.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is that not all parking events in the Cove are daily commutes. So we have Remembrance Day events, we have Bowfest, there's all these things that happen where large groups of islanders show up at the Cove and they're not getting on the bus. So I think we could probably all look around, but I think we're gonna be limited. There's no place.
I think the library lot has room for expansion. That's been considered for a while. That's the only municipal land in the
Yeah.
Cove that could be expanded.
Is there room for parallel parking along Miller? I know we're trying to get rid of the parallel parking beyond Miller where Matthew Rudikoff, that area. But you know how there's that path and then there's municipal land. And I don't know how deep the fire hall or how close to the road the fire hall needs to go, but if there was just some parking along there, parallel parking for, I don't know, 200 meters, you could get quite a few spots along there and not really take up that much land. It's no further really away from the Cove than the existing lot.
Yeah.
Might even feel, safer for people because it's kind of on the road as well, but,
So that would be right on here.
Yeah, I mean, I love having the path there. I think it's important that the path somehow is preserved, but if the path could be pushed in and that path becomes parking.
So I made this exact argument back before I was on council when I was opposing a couple of parking lots. I said, just do it along Miller Road. And if you have to push the path back, okay, push the path back. It's not going to cost you a heck of a lot compared to making the parking lot. Anyway, everyone disagreed with me at the time. I would tend to agree that parking along, and there's also, I think it's Peter Frinton has been saying for a long time, down here, there's a ditch. So if you're heading down just over the hill, past the pub, and you're now heading down the hill, on your right, There's a ditch right there, you could
Put a
probably
culvert
put
in.
a culvert in it and then have some parking going down one side or something like that. So parking
Is that
along
like where the
roads.
bell ringer's lot is? Is that?
Below the bell ringer's
Below the
lot,
bell
that's
ringer's
right,
lot.
right
Well,
below,
I think
between
And
the-
that's road right away.
They could replace parking spots, the ones we're losing, and then maybe all the parking spots that are really close to the ferry become for temporary or handicap or something like that.
There isn't
So
any
it-
spots by the ferry anymore
Yeah.
for long-term parking.
Yeah, no, well, I wasn't thinking, well, yeah, like a
But like
day
12-hour
thing, like
parking
going
is
to.
gone. You
Yeah.
don't have any parking down there. You have to park at the general store or.
So we just need to improve transportation to the Cove, like more buses or
More
better
buses.
buses.
And-
I would walk if it was
Yeah.
safe,
Yeah.
but it's not.
I'm on the, even though I also want to transition away from driving everywhere, but I have to say the life stage that I'm at in Canada is at too. I see myself being a car user while my kids go to daycare. And then I'm hoping I get back to more, I used to commute all the time by bicycle, and I just think there's different phases of life that people are in. And we need to provide something for everyone, whether that's bus or great for people who drive for 5 minutes, park their car, get on the ferry, walk on the ferry, and then take a bus and are car-free for 90% of their commute. I think those people deserve an opportunity to drive and shave 20 to 30 minutes off their commute sometimes.
And on that point, in terms of our emissions from transportation on Bowen, number one is people from driving from Horseshoe Bay to wherever they're going. Number two is the ferry. Number three is driving on Bowen. So that's the bigger thing.
I also want to bring up a parking ride that got put in on Adams. It was one of the top requests during the engagement for the transportation plan. It got zero usage really that we could count.
Yeah.
If parking is really tight in the Cove, that is an option for people to drive there and hop on the bus instead.
That's right.
But it didn't see any usage.
Yeah, that's one of the points that Councillor Wyman has made too, is, if you make parking harder in the Cove, then things like that will get used. But as other people then pointed out to me, okay, so I park there, it's free parking in the Cove, but I could park there, it's free, but then I've got to pay whatever you pay on the bus, I don't know.
$2.50.
Oh,
It's
it's cheap.
It's cheap if you're not commuting on the other side too. Like most people are commuting on the other end and
Yeah.
spending $20 a day.
Well, the bus transfer could also
The bus transfer.
transfer on the other end.
But it doesn't to Peter's bus.
I don't think we need
Depends,
to
yeah.
take a greater stance on the topic because we're naturally going to lose a bunch of our parking. There's only so many places to expand. We might as well identify the places that can be expanded or used at no great cost to our municipality and put those to use. Like if it's a ditch and we're filling it, like people don't walk on that path sometimes because it's not well lit. And when you see them walking on the road, because they don't want to trip on the gravel path, specifically the one on Miller. If that got reworked and added a little bit of parking, I don't know that we'd be losing a whole lot.
So I guess our motion could be that we recommend that staff look into the options of parking along Miller and Dorman roads.
I guess maybe without acquiring land.
Yeah, without acquiring land.
Of lot 3?
So there was one other idea that
The
Emma
fire
came up
hall?
with 2 years ago.
Sorry, that was, the fire hall lot might be free for another several years.
Right.
Which parking are they losing?
So the bottom part of lot 3, which is going to be for the medical center and for Birch, the affordable housing
Right.
proposal, that part is a lot more likely to be built on than the fire hall at this point.
Oh, okay.
And also lot 2, the little corner, that
Area 1 of lot two.
sale
sale.
is pending and likely to go through. When the owners want to start construction is up to them, but it could be very soon. So those two, the current commuter lot might be gone and the extra parking off seniors there could be gone. But the fire hall lot will likely be empty for a while.
Who knows?
So it's another
Consideration.
consideration.
So I just want to tell everyone else an idea Emma came up with a few years ago. So maybe I need to draw it, or maybe I'll just wave my arms. Okay, so when you come off the ferry, issues were raised about how it's dangerous because you have to veer to the right, and you've got a lane coming down, and you have to veer to the right. So Emma suggested instead, and folks might remember this if you're on the committee at the time, is that instead of having parking right beside all the shops and stores on the south side of the road, you make that lane
Ferry
for
version.
the ferry. For the ferry, yes, and you have the parking on the other side. Now, so that sounds like you're just moving the parking from one side to the other. But actually, there are about, I counted at the time,
Cross-hatching?
there's all that cross-hatching for where you've got driveways going into the various places. You would have none of that on the other side except for the library lot. That's the only entry point. And it was about it was about a dozen spaces for cars when I sort of walked it back a couple of
Yeah.
years ago looking at it.
You get a
When I
small
wasn't
fee.
on council at the time.
And also then your geometry coming off the ferry, you don't have that roof job.
Yeah, the geometry
Lines
say
back
just
up.
go straight.
Yeah,
So it changes.
And it's just paint. it's
Pardon?
just paint.
It's just paint.
So it's very
In other
low
words,
cost.
yeah, it's low cost, it's just paint, and you get about a dozen new parking spaces, and it's,
The only problem is all the businesses on that
Yeah.
side, so people are gonna be running
people
across
are
the
walking
road.
across. Yeah,
They won't be going to the crosswalk, they'll be jaywalking.
yeah, they'll just walk across the road, it's true.
But we also have parking for all those businesses in library lot right now, and people are running across.
Yeah, and they cross the road, yeah.
I think that's a brilliant idea. In addition to the spaces that are crosshatched that you can't park in, you also, the other spots are also very dangerous. You don't want to get stuck in there because if the ferry's loading, you've got 20 minutes where
Yeah.
you can't pop into Tuscany and park right there because when you get out of your Tuscany, so I think it's a brilliant idea.
At the time, the mayor, at the time,
Yeah,
Mayor Seals,
yeah.
felt very strongly that the parking should remain next to the businesses. So that's why that never went forward.
Yeah, I wonder if the business people would have some, the merchants in Cove would have something to say about this.
Don't you think that people that are living here, that are going down the Cove, they're not gonna not go to that place because they have to walk across the street?
That's right.
And most people
But
that
it's
are,
not just
Not
that,
going
they
to
have
the
to go
other
down to
pizza
the end and turn around.
if you're going to the Cove to go
So
to Tuscany,
there's
you're not
gonna
gonna
be a
not
lot
go.
of U-turn down at the bottom.
But the
Yeah.
people parking right now on that side of the street have to do that U-turn to get back up the hill anyways.
Yeah.
That's
So
true.
it's the same traffic.
And then if it's tourists, or most majority probably walk on anyways.
Well, I think that's a great idea, but right now, all that parking is not long-term.
Yeah.
Can I also say one negative thing about it too? You do run the risk of people who are having to parallel park when the ferry's unloading,
Yeah.
back up, and people should use their common sense, but they don't. They could be unloading and try and get into a spot, so it could lead to some problems with
That
efficient
happens on that
unloading
side of the
ferry.
street too, right now. You have people,
Loading of the ferry?
well, no, if people are like loading the ferry and you wanna go park, someone always kind of might sneak in on you and
But
park.
unloading with 2 lanes coming off the ferry within 5 minutes, I think is a different level of congestion than 1 lane of ferry coming off. But you'd free up a lot of spots, it'd be pretty amazing.
And one of the things about all the cross-hatching is everybody gets confused
So
about it too.
confusing.
And
Yeah, it's very
tourists go,
confusing.
okay, can I park here? Cross-hatching means yes or no, or what is it, and so on.
Yeah.
So we're asked to consider this right now. What's our takeaway? Are we gonna come up with a list of things that we think we should look into, or do we feel like we have a recommendation?
I guess the one thing that I'm hearing all around the room is everyone's supporting the idea of providing more parking. So that's, that's an important statement by itself compared to a divided council. So that's one thing. And then the other is on the roads, include on Dorman and Miller, and look at shifting the parking on Government Road to the north side, and to straighten describe it, to
Intersection alignment?
yeah,
Is
to
that-
align the intersection and move the parking to the north side where there won't be any crosshatch areas, something like that.
So, sorry, I'm just gonna right here.
Does anyone want to consider the library lot expansion?
Isn't there worry about the herons for that? I'm not quite sure what that face is to say.
Let's face the same, they're always worried about the herons.
But there are already cars there.
There's
Maybe a lot bigger.
Maybe not, maybe.
Yes,
More cars.
yeah.
Bless her.
And last I heard the herons haven't been nesting in that area for some time,
I don't know.
but I don't know how long they need to wait until it's not considered heron nesting
Right.
habitat.
Yeah. Well, sure, we can add that on. I don't know what others think.
I like the idea of using or getting the spaces to people that are basically sitting there wasted. Like the side of the road, if it's moving gravel over a little bit, because we don't park there anyway every time there's a bow fest. Or,
Yeah.
like it's already been tested.
Yeah.
It works fairly well. The path gets a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
The Dorman Road ditch, to fill that in, will be quite a bit more than just shifting over the trail in Millard, because culverting
Yeah, you've got
is quite an expense.
Yeah, I think the low-cost ones would be the
Yeah.
first things to look at, even if they're slightly further off.
So what you got said? Oh, there we go.
Is that right?
Does everyone agree with all the parts? What about Tyler, you're saying not for expanding the library lot, or what? I don't know, see what other people think.
I'm for that for people, like, if you need to be close to, get park close to the ferry, if you're handicapped, or if you have kids and 2 strollers and
But
an
how do
elderly
you-
adult.
How do you separate all the users? It's impossible.
Yeah.
Who's the first come, first served?
Well, there's sign, like, you can have signs like they do in malls that are like family parking or handicap parking.
That's true, but not everybody's going to pay.
One other thing I think we could add, although we could still discuss how to handle that one, is give a reason, just so, because that'll help deal with council, is to support people who are
The
parking
people that
in order
need
to
drive,
take
that
transit.
absolutely need to drive.
Okay, so it's about the emissions, whereas the number one source of emissions,
Sure,
Yeah.
good,
emissions from Bowen Islanders,
yeah.
I think it's just,
going around there.
I don't even know, I don't know that,
either one M or one S, there you go.
I can delete it, Tyler. Is driving on the mainland?
Yes. Drive on
And whereas commuter and event parking, I think that was a good
Yeah.
point for those well families and strollers are coming to an end. And parking. Am I stating the obvious here? Due to development on lots 3, 2, and 3. And
I guess.
or just make one recommendation saying you support it and leave that on its own. And then another one that can say the measures taken.
This, the reason is to help commuters, particularly to help commuters who are taking the bus.
but I think like part of it comes back to, for me anyway, that I might not think of parking as being so important that I want to see a large portion of my tax bill going to lease lots to make giant parkades, but we have land that might be usable that supports all users. So whereas we might not see parking lots as a first priority, making the best use of our assets for all people on the island.
I think that's a really good point, because that land, if it sells, it's, whatever, I guess I shouldn't tell you what the price is, but obviously it's a heck of a lot of money. To use a heck of a lot of money for all those lots where we've got things, and sitting there used for car parking, that's expensive parking. And it's sitting at it's a
For free parking.
Yeah. It's land we need to use. used for housing, used for sale, or whatever.
So I think personally, that's my biggest motivation.
Using the land that's available, using the inexpensive land that's
Yeah,
available.
trying to help the most people with what we've got without subsidizing automobile use.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You got a
Where
lot
do
of
you want
thoughts to
that?
get down.
Yeah, where is, or what, again? Sorry.
I think we should pick one or two reasons and pare it down. But anyway, where?
Yeah, the whereas, they're all okay, but I think support the creation
Okay,
of using existing land.
Okay.
Using existing land, such as along Miller and Dorman roads,
Yes.
to provide low cost.
using, existing municipal land, municipal owned?
It's roadway land, rather than, like, it's not land that you could sell for housing or use for
I see,
affordable housing or
sorry.
something like
Roadway
that.
allowances
Yeah.
and things like that.
Roadway allowance,
Sorry, we have a
statutory
lot of
right
thoughts,
of way,
sorry.
what do you call it, ROEs?
Allowances,
Would it make sense to say the Transportation Advisory Committee support the use of existing land for the creation of additional parking in Snack Cove?
but it's not existing land because, like what David was just saying, there's a lot higher value to that land for other uses.
But the fire hall, in front of the fire hall is allocated for that, is it not? Like just we're talking about
Parking.
using that land, are we not?
The road allowance?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's what's saying here, existing municipal road allowance.
So I guess that's
Oh,
the
road.
distinction, allowance versus land.
Okay.
Land being a law,
Right.
allowance being already slated
Yeah.
for roads.
So you don't want any parking on non-roadway allowances? Or you want to prioritize roadway allowances?
I just think just leave it for now. We're just saying, okay, we're gonna lose a bunch of them, but replace it with roadway stuff, which is really what you're saying.
And Emma, you would, I mean, this doesn't need to be more detailed in terms of saying like the east side of Dorman Road Miller Road until wherever that is
I
centered.
don't think so.
Okay. Just because we have just recommended that we abolish parking further up Miller Road.
Yeah.
We don't need to be more specific here.
But
That's okay?
I think so, because nobody can park way up the hill.
Well, are we keeping the last?
I was
part?
gonna delete down there, or you want me to keep it the down this?
Maybe you're right, Scott, maybe we should.
You're the pro.
That's
Middle
fine.
Road on that right side
Okay.
of that.
How to use specific allowance to be able to hand that the council director. Okay, yeah, sure, you're right.
So it's just not attractive parking. I mean, you have to walk up the Seven Hills to get to your car.
No, I agree. I just want to be clear that we are sending to, like, I think in the last meeting, we did the opposite, right, of saying no parking on Miller, and now we're saying parking
True.
on Miller. Then
Right.
maybe we should specify parking on what part of Miller, the part before Senator Road would be on the left. I don't know what that other thing is on the right, but basically that.
Is it
the
parking on
creek,
the way
right,
to
to Terminal
junction
Creek
with the
and-
path?
When you say
Up to the
parking
German,
lot,
up
Up
to the creek,
Is that Terminal Creek?
or up to Melmore even? It's not really,
Oh, there
or the park,
I think
okay.
Terminal Creek.
Terminal
Yeah.
Creek, okay.
Yeah.
Miller Road up to and Dorman Road.
roads up.
Just to be symmetrical, up to Emma's old house.
What is
So
it, the sewage
treatment
plant?
the sewage
Oh,
plant,
perfect, yeah.
Something like
To
that.
the sewage treatment plant. Oops.
So what about the library lot now? So do we ditch that part,
Well, it could be an or, no, right?
or keep it?
I'm not against keeping it. I think that
Staff's just looking into it.
it's,
Okay.
because that's not, we're not purchasing land at that point, we're just expanding if
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah, we've got land there, that's right. We do have land there. They're not going into the park, that's correct. Yes, there is. It is municipal land, but it's not in a place where you could put in some housing right now.
Yeah.
So
And stuff at the very top is on the number one source.
Oh, and the fire hall lot could be a possibility.
This is lot 3?
Lot three.
Lot 3?
I think we should leave that for now, because that's paying a bunch of money, and it's, who knows what's gonna happen. Let's just leave that.
Would it be
People park there
expensive?
now
Wouldn't
anyway.
it cost
It's
money
already
to
been
do
leveled,
Pardon?
it's already been leveled and cleared.
There's the odd person that parks there now.
So it's just putting down some gravel.
Yeah.
I'm all
That could
for
be
it,
truck
but
parking.
Pardon?
Truck parking.
People park there, like if you just do it, like going into the park, I've seen people park there for a little bit. But it only, like, there's room for like 2 cars.
It may not be expensive, but I think that isn't a bigger investment in land. I don't like the idea of spending any money at all on that if in 2 or 3 years there's gonna be a fire hall there.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's courteous to the fire hall folks either to make use of it for.
Yeah, say, hey, we hear it's been expensive, we're taking it over.
Yeah, yeah.
May I suggest temporary parking to be short-term parking?
Yeah.
Just so it doesn't sound like the parking is temporary.
Moving the existing short-term parking, on Miller Road to the north, no,
On the trunk road to the north side, yeah. Yeah.
I like it how this pretty radical idea just kind of.
Yeah.
Just want a bunch of warehouses.
You need it on in here? On.
So
Yeah, okay, this is pretty cool.
I'm just noticing the time,
Yeah,
so I'll
you're
probably have about 5 minutes.
Okay.
I'm just gonna draw up what the landscaper is proposed for
Yep.
Cardina
Okay.
access.
Oh, on the handicap parking.
Yeah.
what's the next one? Yeah.
So this is the truck road. And this is Cardina. There's the existing sidewalk and then the new one. And then there's like the whatever dead cherry tree that's gone. And there's a little path that comes up here. Maybe it goes like that or something.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the library. Yeah, that. And then there's a Cove Commons here.
Yeah, right there.
And then the library is here. And then there's like these steps. Like hearing circle, it's here. They have a little deck. And right now there's quite a big drop off.
Yeah.
The proposal is actually, because there's a drop off, but the deck is actually almost the same grade as the sidewalk. So the proposal is to fill all of this in and create a walk-in paver path here. I know, sorry, it's very confusing. And then carry this path onto
Right, connect the other ones.
yeah, and all this grade will be all smoothed out, so this is totally wheelchair accessible, coming off of the sidewalk and then coming down to this landing here. This right now is a big drop off, so we're gonna regrade this whole thing to gently slope up and meet the grade of the sidewalk here. And this can be a wheelchair accessible route to get to the, well, I guess there's an entrance here to Cove Commons and the library. Then there's also the issue of the handicap parking getting onto the sidewalk, because they've decided to put in a big square curb for the sidewalk instead of a rollover one. I did ask for a letdown here, it never got built. The trailhead to Crippen Park, which is not far off from Caring Circle, about there.
Yeah.
is a letdown because they need maintenance vehicles to get onto the trail. So if we stick the handicap, I think there's just one, but maybe there's two, I don't know. At the end of the sidewalk there, then it's a short distance to get onto this letdown and then get onto the sidewalk. So that's where we decided, we've left it out for the disabled parking access.
Where do the buses load now in the new configuration?
Sorry, this
They're down
is
there.
the new curve actually. So this is going to be, whoops, right here, this is going to be the bus loading area.
So, I mean, the carrying circles, how do you get on a bus with a wheelchair?
Well, the bus, normally, the bus can load off the sidewalk, but I think ours are rear loading, in which case, they will have to go through this letdown here.
I
I know, not ideal,
yeah,
not ideal, but it is directly next to the bus.
Yeah, there's two letdowns. There's a letdown right there and then one around the corner as
Yeah,
well.
to go this way. Depending if we get new bus, like shuttles, but if they were loading from the front, they can come right off the sidewalk.
yeah.
But the current design is they load off the back, so it'll have to be onto the road.
How expensive is it putting in a letdown where you wanted it after the fact? Because it doesn't seem right to not have the spaces for people with disabilities farthest away from the services.
What I've been told, I don't have a dollar amount, it would be pretty expensive because this concrete, and it's all poured, so you're gonna have to dig that out and then reform it in concrete. So asphalt's not so expensive, but the concrete is. But also generally the standards don't like it when there's a letdown mid-block. So it's either at intersections or onto like parking lots, but not onto roadways, unless it's a driveway. So that's what we've been working on now.
So are the folks involved, like Colleen, are they comfy with this proposal?
Yes, I met with Colleen for the Carrying Circle, and then Cove Commons, Jackie and Tina and Len and Susan, I believe, on the library board, and we actually walked all the site together. We talked about having the access here and having the disabled parking there, and also smoothing out this ramp to give this connection. So we actually came up with this plan together. Yeah. And then I went over with the landscaper to make sure it was possible. Still waiting on a quote from him. I'm not sure if we have the budget to do all of that work. This will likely be done. I think it's the cheapest, but this might need to wait until next year.
It's
That's
not-
right, that's right.
No, go ahead.
Okay, just one other thought is what about the parking lot to the left, like the current gravel parking lot, and potentially making that more accessible for people to get to the library, like doing some paving there? Not paving that entire lot, but paving it so that you can actually get onto the next brick path and park for someone with a disability that's parking in the gravel lot, rather than parking way down by Griffin Park. Would that be an
Well, there is
easier
a designated disabled parking spot there.
Right now.
I'm trying to picture it. You're right, I think it is gravel.
one?
It makes no
But
sense.
but paving would be could be a lot cheaper than some of the other options.
Yes, I've asked, and actually paving over this lot would actually reduce the maintenance costs, because it gets really bad potholes and running over the seasonal cycle. I just don't think they had the budget to justify that. We did talk about eventually charging for parking in the Cove, and that would help to fund stuff like maintenance and paving and parking. But right now, no, there's no budget for that. But that is a good point, it's not very accessible.
My question was going to be, I mean, I know Colleen's very connected to the users, but are we relying on her opinion of what will work in this plan, or do we have a user or set of users that we could make sure this is gonna work? I mean, I have never been in a wheelchair, I have no idea how, like, this seems good to me, but I don't know if my opinion matters, and I think we've talked to the most connected people that are in our communication circle, but I'm wondering if, like, we could still be wrong.
Well, I think Colleen is actually the most connected with people that have accessibility issues.
I'm sure she is, but I'm wondering, have we done a good enough job of making sure that she understands what we're doing and has been able to communicate that, or like whether we're speaking for her that this has been properly vetted by the right user group?
There are standards for wheelchair accessibility in terms of width and grade.
Yeah. I think I was thinking more the location and whether parking, I'm sure there's a lot that goes into parking your car and getting out of your car into a wheelchair, and just looking at the fact that it's now parallel parking versus what was stall parking, and you're getting out of your car, you don't have necessarily a space behind you or beside you, so are you unloading a wheelchair into traffic, and then you now have to ride down the road to get onto the sidewalk?
For these spaces?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it would be right next, so you're not going far, you're just going around the end of your car to get
Yeah.
onto the sidewalk. And keeping in mind that what was there before, people navigated that. I've never seen a wheelchair navigate it, but the caring circle has a lot of people with mobility issues going there, and what was there before is far worse.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily suggesting anything for you, but I know that as this group tried to make an effort to help mobility issues on island as much as possible, I'm wondering if we're doing everything right now that we could to make sure that we're not missing an opportunity here. Maybe we should sketch this and talk to someone who actually uses a wheelchair.
I welcome that feedback, yeah.
Maybe.
Would Ailey want to do that, or she's?
I'm sure she would, and if she doesn't, I know Colleen as well, and would happily maybe go through her to help engage the user group beyond her, so.
Sure. Yeah, the sooner the better. This work, we're gonna probably move forward with if we have the budget.
Yeah.
This one's probably gonna cost quite a bit, so there's time, I think. It really depends on what we can afford to do this year or not, but if you can get the feedback in earlier, we can work it into the design before we get started.
Is there a detailed plan like this that we could use as a talking point with people, or?
I'm waiting for the quote. I'm hoping it'll come with a sketch, but essentially it was us walking the site and the landscaper.
Is there anything to work from? Like I can use AutoCAD if there's something to work from to recreate this.
I can send you the existing landscape design. It was done for Cove Commons by James Stewart, and you can use that as like a base map, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you send me whatever's available, I'll try to sketch something and just make sure we're not missing an opportunity.
That'd be great. Emma, were you trying to catch the 8:30?
Yes.
Coming in.
Emma, what are you sending to her?
The Cove Commons landscape plan.
Emma, do you have some way of getting down there?
Running, yeah.
I don't.
You're not gonna make it.
You're
It's 20 minutes.
Oh, we did. It's 8:30, right?
I'll run you down. I'll run you down for 30.
That's okay.
Can you do it?
Yeah. I think me running and you driving is what. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma.
Ah, youth.
You can probably see where she's going.
We jumped a bit, but I did talk to Ailey about this topic.
Yeah.
And how the original letter evolved a little bit from this issue, which now seems to have a game plan, to just a little bit of an expression of disappointment that they didn't feel like the user groups were engaged. Although it sounds like staff had thought they had provided instruction, so the only opportunity I saw there was maybe as part of the value that we can add to these discussions, you're already on council as well, but some of the other members here is trying to bridge some of this gap where staff doesn't have necessarily the time to seek public input. If we spread that among 10 years or whatever and try and make efforts on our part to reach out and seek public engagement, even if informally, that might be somewhere we can add value to these things when they come up for our consideration.
That's part of your role,
Yeah.
is to be a connection with the community.
But I think making it a standard point of practice that when we get asked to look at a plan through Emma or someone else, that one of the things be that we're not just using our eyes to review it, that we try and make action items where we go in and seek the right user groups and the right people that might have a stake in it, and try and bring that back to the municipality. And then we could skip back to our recommendation from the previous one if we want.
Just, sorry, on that one then, there's no recommendation on the handicap parking, there are 2 action items. Should we put sort of a next steps, like, Emma's gonna send you the landscape plan, you're gonna reach out to the wheelchair user groups with the illustration and solicit feedback.
Yeah.
And then, do you need a sort of a timeline identified, or we'll say, a report back to staff?
Yeah, all has to happen before our next meeting, so.
So then you wanna just send her an email, or just send an email to see, and for the whole committee to see?
I'll send it to the committee and
Okay.
Emma.
And Emma's on that BIMTAC email, so I'll just call the committee by email. Yeah,
Perfect.
okay. I think these action items need to be a little more detailed, they sometimes like,
Yeah, so,
email back the guy.
yeah.
Just take the time to flesh it out a bit.
Let's go back to our resolution.
Mhm.
Good resolution.
Where was that information from, David, about the #1 source of emissions?
It's in my presentation that I gave to council, and this actually is old now. It was, Pembina Institute study that was done.
Or pollution.
93%? Should we say that, or pursuant to blah, blah, blah study, or?
Everybody on council knows that, I think, because I used, given that presentation last
Yeah.
time.
Isn't it in our transportation plan as well?
It's probably in the transportation plan as well, I don't know. But this was a Pembina Institute study, I think it was 2003. And, quite a few things have changed since then, but not to materially change things so much.
Can I say where is the Pembina Institute study
I
indicates
think
that?
I wouldn't bother.
No.
Like it's,
Yeah, it's kind of common.
yeah.
I think I'm happy with it. Do we have any comments, or should we vote? Just all in favor?
Pretty cool. And I think it's important that it has some details, but we gotta split council on this so that there's an explanation.
I'm very happy to promote a middle ground.
Yeah.
And we have to account for all user groups.
Yeah.
Correspondence, the letter
Oh,
of
yeah.
first.
Because of the Emma schedule, we're kind of flipped back
Yeah,
and forth from.
Yeah, that was interesting, that first stop on public transit.
So has everyone read this letter?
That was one that was up on the screen earlier,
Yeah,
from Linda.
Linda, yeah.
so she sent that to me, and I asked Jill if she wanted to include it, and she did. I didn't just include this.
So this is on page 12 of 19. Oh, there you go.
So I thought that this was a good idea, but had a potential downside being that if the bus is free for in-Cove stops, or the first 2 stops, or however we worded it, that when we're also butting into capacity issues, we're gonna have people getting on the bus just for a ride to their car in the parking on Miller Road or whatever, and that we were gonna cause just as many problems by bumping users who might be going all the way to Blue Water or Eagle Cliff with people who are getting a ride in their
How
cars.
about just to handicap?
I was just about to say that making it free to handicapped people to access parking in the Cove
Great idea.
would work well. And I looked into what you require, like what level of mobility challenge is required to be handicapped or designated, and I think it was 100 or 400 meters of walking. So I think that it's very similar to kind of parking spaces anyway. So I would think that if you couldn't make the walk,
Is that
then
400 meters flat or with the slope?
I'm not sure.
That's a good point.
I'd have to reread it, but I'd hope that you can. It sounded when I read the guidance that you can make your case to your doctor and apply for that sticker. I don't know if we need to require a sticker to implement something like this on Bowen, or if it can be a bit more casual.
I don't think so, probably. But I guess it could put the bus driver in a tricky position, couldn't it?
That's what I'm worried about. Like, do you need to be able to prove that you meet this requirement, or how do we?
Well, like, I do, like, when my mom was going to UBC, she had a hip replacement, so she got a sticker for handicapped parking because she couldn't walk the half kilometer into the school campus from the parking lot, so she got, front row parking and that showed her route, but that was to get flat. I think this is more it's more, I think, on the translate solution to say, can you look the other way for people like Linda, who where she parks every morning. She parks her little, car up at the lot 3, and she just needs a lift up the road, and does she have to be charged $275 every time she does that? So, do we have to include TransLink in this? Get there?
We would.
Interest?
We have to, otherwise we'd be putting our drivers into a difficult position, and so
Yeah.
they have to report to First Transit, who are the subcontractor to Coast Mountain. And so we have to make a recommendation that it go to First Transit. First Transit will want it to be clear. They won't want it to be just sort of some Bowen-y sort of thing. Hey, she's got a sore leg, or something like that, probably. But, so we'd have to go through staff and First Transit.
I would love it for it to be Bowen-y, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't.
it's because we have a non-Bowen operator.
Yeah, I think that might be a little bit of a cop-out. I think that even if it was a Bowen operator, like you mentioned, there could be abuse fairly easily.
One other idea, the idea of the full bus has come up, not just on this issue, but other issues as well, when we have a lot of tourists in the summer and some people said there's not enough room. And that issue of the handicapped person who couldn't get on that time, whether or not they were handicapped would have made a difference. But apparently not allowed to have people standing, which to me seems absurd, since you stand on a 257 going at 100 kilometers an hour on the highway, but you're not allowed to stand going at 40 kilometers an hour on Bowen. The reason is you got that bar to hold on to on the 257. Hugely safe bar, you could smash into it and be ripped in two. But anyway.
I've seen you mention that several times.
Yes, standing there holding the bar with other vertical bars right in front of you, why can't you? But anyway, if they simply had bars that people could hang on to on our little shuttle bus, so that we're allowed to have standees, because the standee issue has come up a whole lot.
Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit, and I think Emma gave us an update thinking that the bus was only certified for the certain number of people, and
There's no bars.
yeah, but my worry, like if it's as much as we didn't order the bar option, then sure. But if this is a Transport Canada issue, where the people who need to make that decision aren't even in our group of normal, like it's not First Transit, it's not us, it's not anyone we even talk to, it's all the way down to Transport Canada, I think that we're not gonna get anywhere.
Well, I think the Transport Canada rule presumably is the one about bars, but I guess what I'm wondering about is, can you get a shuttle bus that has bars like that so that it allows standees? Does TransLink have such buses?
Scott?
A couple quick points. One is Eagle Cliff one of the overloaded buses, because it would be the Eagle Cliff bus, I would think, for
Yeah.
now anyway, while there's parking line there. Second of all, I personally would much rather walk up than sit in a bus for a few minutes, wait for it to leave, and then with a bunch of other people, rather than walking through the woods or whatever. So I'm not sure it would be that crowded. On a night like tonight, like cold and dark and rainy, it might become an issue, but I think Bow and Islanders would have the courtesy to get off the bus. Like if you knew it was an overload and you had 300-meter walk or maybe a kilometer walk, I don't know what it is, but I think people would get off the bus. I still think it's worth doing the handicap only, but if people were abusing it in some fashion, I don't think it would be over a high number of people.
And people probably would use it if it's like dead or if you're coming off a later ferry and it's not very
Yeah.
busy maybe.
I mean, I have seen people get off, not an overloaded bus, but quite a busy bus, only at the corner.
I agree, lots. And the
Yeah.
one going west, they got off the corner,
Yeah, and I don't
Like an overloaded, like a bus that could have been overloaded. You mean.
near capacity, but I'm sure it wasn't overloaded,
Yeah.
but, yeah, I've seen be waiting there for 5 minutes and then you get the first stop is at the intersection.
Yeah.
yeah. I agree, I'm astounded, like,
Yeah.
why did they sit there instead of, you could have walked up in 3 minutes, but anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. I think the handicap, though, if it's handicapped,
Yeah.
so,
So you're saying a sticker on the car? Like, what about those orange things we have in our cars, like a pass?
They would need to carry it with
So you
them.
have
My-
to,
Yeah, you have
walking
to have
on it,
it.
it has to be something you hold.
Hold.
yeah.
My worry is that
Size
I
car.
wanted a solution that could be dealt with existing paperwork for most
Exactly, you
cases
don't want
that didn't require the driver to do anything
Yeah.
or make a judgment call. It was just, and that's the only one I could think of, is that maybe, and I don't even know this for sure, maybe if you have a sticker for your car, there's some other piece of paper or card or something that you could show to say that, and then we could have this clear-cut policy that says that if you're handicapped and you're on Bowen, we don't have handicap parking in the, adjacent to the ferry, so we allow
Yeah.
free ridership to the first few stops so that people can access other parking. Like that seemed like a clear-cut,
And
way
really, honestly,
forward.
the only people that have to prove it are people who don't look handicapped. I mean, this woman's got a knee brace, she's probably gonna walk, look, you know, with difficulty.
I mean, that's
Or a
probably
woman
true.
who's 9 months pregnant, like, she's gonna obviously show that she could use a ride.
Yeah.
There's obvious and there's not obvious.
Well, maybe we should put it to First Transit, maybe they don't need
Maybe
the sticker.
I think it's worth just checking with First Transit to see how easy it will be to allow this.
Let's make them require
Yeah,
a sticker, not suggest to them that it be
Right.
somebody designated as handicapped. Maybe we go to them and say visibly pregnant or mobility impaired, we would like them to be able to use the service
Yeah, for the first stop.
for the first couple stops.
Yeah. So I guess we'd be asking Emma to approach First Transit on that. In our communications with her. I hate to be asking Emma to be doing these things, but
She's talking to one of these days. She's
Yeah.
got a reason to be.
yeah.
Regarding handicapped at park, you're saying free first stop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds right.
that's right.
Free first stop.
Free first stop.
People.
Yeah, to the parking lot, to where the cars are.
Free ride to Area 1 parking lot,
Or Area 3 parking lot.
commuter parking.
Yeah. To commuter parking, that's.
So that can be anywhere on the route.
Yeah.
Say my car's parked here, can you drop me off here, right? Is that what it means? If somebody's parked on Miller Road, like
Yeah.
you say, we offer those parking spots and they want to get to their car.
I think we could leave it up to Emma to
Yeah.
figure this out
Yeah.
for now.
Because I know
Or
the bus will
handicap.
stop, like, they'll stop and let you off at the pharmacy, outside pharmacy if you want to go into the village, right?
Maybe there's room for some Bowen-iness.
Yeah.
But wait, yeah.
Okay. So we, on to council, no, what happened here? We're in the 8 council referrals?
Yeah, because we
Yeah.
bounced around, because one
Right.
Emma had to be here for, and this climate change Emma does not need to be here for.
Do we need to vote on that?
I just put an action item for Emma to, it could be a 5-minute conversation, right? Council
Yeah.
doesn't have to direct staff, if she's already talking to them.
If she's already talking,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
If she's already talking to them, then I'll just get one of you guys to do it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's having conversations. So
So this
the
is the
next,
climate?
you guys will take a minute to look at it, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I attached
I
the
read it.
wrong, oh, you already read it?
So here's, so what
Do you want
happened?
me to pull up that presentation?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't include it because of,
Yeah.
that fourth time you told me,
Yeah.
because maybe I stopped including it, right when I got the edit.
Yeah, so what happened is about a month ago or whatever, council asked me, no, the council didn't ask me, this came out of the Environment Climate Action Committee. We sort of worked on this, and then I worked on it a lot myself, and got feedback from various people, including some stakeholders, and Metro Vancouver folks and so on. And, but when I presented it to council, council asked that I do sort of a climate change 101 kind of thing, just like, okay, what, to try to make 3 points is, can we trust the science? And what are all the acronyms all about? And what's this, what's going on here? And so on, and why a climate emergency, that kind of stuff. So I did a presentation on that. And then also the target that's set here is very aggressive, zero emissions, net zero emissions by 2050. Why such an aggressive target? And so I talked about the latest science, and so I presented the latest science on why that's required. And then a little bit of explanation that sort of helped contextualize the part of the business to reduce emissions and basically also adapt to the changes that are coming. So what I did, and then we said, okay, what council asked is this be referred to staff and to the various committees. And so I presented already to the Finance Committee, to the Parks and Trails, and to the Advisory Planning Commission, and got some really great comments. They're all in my document here, scribbled in. And staff has been attending as well, but she's not here tonight. We'll then work together to sort of consolidate all these comments into a final strategy. So what I did in the other ones, well, since you haven't seen the presentation, I don't want to take the time to go through it, but you might have questions about parts of it. I could go through it really quickly. Do you want me to, like, you need a climate change 101? Why such a target and all that sort of stuff? You don't need it. You need it?
I do.
Okay.
I'm good, but.
Okay, so let's just, what I did then was just sort of went through the elements of the strategy itself, and then got comments. And there's obviously a transportation part of this, because transportation, we'll show one slide. Let's go to, keep going. Keep going. One more there. Okay, this is the emissions we were talking about. So, off-island transportation, the ferry, and on-island transportation, and then houses. Buildings, which is like. And so you can see the transportation is just huge. And so obviously it's relevant to this committee and to the kinds of discussions that we've been having. So, and then there's the whole adaptation side, which was really critical to the parks, trails, and greenways and other folks, and less so for us. But although you might have them as individual comments around that. So to reduce emissions from transportation, if you just go to the next slide, that's kind of good. Yeah, there are only 3 things, the 4 things you can do to reduce emissions from transportation. And one is this low carbon fuel standard, and that's what the federal government's doing. It's changing the fuel a little bit. We can't do that, we've got nothing to do with it. Being done for us, excellent. But these are 3 things that we can do. Mode shift means moving people into bikes, buses, walking, whatever. Zero carbon vehicles, obviously, electric vehicles. And this last one, reducing the need for transportation, it sounds weird, but it's actually the biggest thing that the local governments can do on this. And it's all around zoning. And it's less of a zoning issue for Bowen, but it is what it is in lots of places like in Vancouver and Burnaby and so on. It's trying to make more complete communities so people don't have to go as far to get to work or to go to go to the gym or whatever it might be, go to school and so on, so they don't have to drive all over the place, they can walk places or take their bike or take a little bus or whatever it might be. And there are some things we can do on Bowen specifically about that. So what I can take you through quickly is those three things: a mode shift, zero carbon vehicles, and so we don't need any more slides. So if you just go to the page, oh, I'm going to say one more thing about the introductory page, the context. It's really got there's a couple of things in here, you can take it home and read it, but one of the really important things is we can't do this by ourselves. This is a huge issue, it's really hard, everybody's got to work on it, but a lot of people are working on it. Metro Vancouver has set the same target of zero emissions by 2050, and staff are working on what now they're calling roadmaps, which is the kind of actions needed to get there, and that'll be coming along in 2020. They'll have them for transportation, they'll have them for buildings, they'll have them for industry and other things that we don't need, but transportation and buildings they will have. So other people are going to be doing stuff, and so that means the environment will be changing. You know, we need to hitch a ride when we can to, okay, somebody's doing this, we can do that too, or we can do part of it or something like that. So the idea is that this is not going to be sort of set in stone things. It has to be adaptable as things change, as we learn more, as other people start doing stuff. You know, the feds are saying they're going to set the same target. We have a motion that's coming to the Metro Vancouver board, which I did, actually, coming to the Metro Vancouver board this weekend, talking to the provincial government to get them to set the same strategy. So they'll be, actually, when I had a chance, I talked to Andrew Weaver about this, because I know him quite well, and he's keen on it. So that if then everyone has the same strategy, then, the same targets, you know, then more actions will be coming along. So that means we have to be adaptable. We have to be able to see, oh, everybody's doing this, we can do that too. The other thing is we've sort of put these into three buckets: the quick wins, longer term, and support and advocacy. Support and advocacy is stuff that we can't do, like obviously BC Ferries Translink, but we need to keep working on those things, even though they're outside of our control. So let's look at the first one, to promote a shift from, so this is now on the top of the second page. So we're talking about reducing emissions, to promote a shift from single occupancy vehicles to quick wins. So conservation development policy, this has just gone to the APC, it went to council Monday. This is another thing I've been working on. And it basically means clustering homes for new rezonings, try to cluster the homes together rather than spread all out like sort of suburban sprawl, so they're closer to transportation routes. So that's number one. And then this cool idea that somebody else gave me, add a bike to the municipal fleet. You know, it could be an e-bike. So for positions where you're not having to travel across the island and carry great big loads on your back, have an e-bike, branded, you know, set an example in other words. Then the longer term stuff, and this gets to what we were talking about today, accelerate investments in active transportation. That means, you know, above the level identified in our newly completed transportation plan. So, and then we say so that a majority of Bowen Island residents have access to a system of multi-use transportation paths, aligning with the recommendations of BC's 2019 active transportation strategy. Now, we just heard today, just going one stretch across the island could cost us $7, $8, $9, whatever it is, $1 million. So I don't know what we do about this. You know, that came out of this committee and it came out of our work. And should we set a different target? Should we keep it as it is? And any thoughts?
Well, if you can't make it safer by separating, the only option I see is make it safer by road use, whether that's...
If you get more vehicles off the road,
Yes.
it's gonna be safer road.
Or
For
speed
cyclists,
limits,
speed
awareness,
walking.
advocacy.
So maybe we should say something like that. There's an active transportation infrastructure and policies, like, you know, the stuff that we were talking about passing and so on, and policies that support bicycle use on roads or something like that.
I like the word culture, like more than policy, like
Yeah.
a culture of active transportation, because you know the whole piece that we had a conversation about signage or painting or well, like what is going to make it feel like bikes have a place in our
Yeah.
lives? That's culture, it's not policy.
It is, it's more and more people doing it.
Yeah.
It's when things become more visible, other people start accepting it as a way to get around,
Yeah.
an alternative.
Yeah.
It takes time to make those changes though.
Yeah.
So let's make that a separate bullet rather than trying to squeeze it into the infrastructure one, because it's really important. Like what we want to do is to make it feel safe, make it safer, but feel safer. So we're asking council to support initiatives. Somebody finish my sentence for me. Support initiatives that or road sharing initiatives.
Promote initiatives that encourage, we fit the word culture in there.
Well, I like to promote a culture of active transportation.
Culture.
Yeah, the promote,
Yeah,
the
that-
promote.
Support initiatives that promote an active, or a culture of active transportation.
Which a multi-use path.
Yeah.
I mean,
But we don't want to stop if we can.
Yeah. So we keep the path one in,
Right.
and we'll see how far we get with it. But we also need to work on the other stuff. Need to,
I agree with you about, you know, if it's cheaper to put the path in some places,
yeah,
why can't that be changed?
I'm gonna work on that.
Yeah.
Is it similar to the community center grant, once you put the grant application in, or it's so specific to them?
Yeah, but still, we'll look at other things. But I think this other one, we don't need to get the exact words. I know what we're trying to do here, and I'll put something in that reflects that, because I think it's a really important part. Like going up Seven Hills, I don't know what the road allowance is there, but there's a cliff on one side and a cliff on the other side. So regardless of where the road allowance is, there's not a heck of a lot we can do, except really do things that make it feel safe. And that means, you know, the passing distance, it might mean colored sections where, I don't know. But there's things that we can do to make it work and encourage it through the school and so on.
All you really need to change is to make it feel like the cars are not going to hit you.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all you're getting at, whether
Yeah.
it's by moving you further away or having them act
Yeah.
differently.
Act differently, yeah.
Make it feel like you're not going to get run over.
It's such a bad sight too, like you can't see people walking on that road very well.
I know,
Yeah.
it's really.
It's awful.
Yeah, but I think like we drive it every day and you come around that corner and how many of the cars driving away from the ferry would think to come to a stop if there's oncoming traffic and a pedestrian on the road blocking their space. It's very few people would slow down to even tend to make that pass. They just,
These,
barrel right
they
next.
barrel
to
right
us.
through,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's all about a culture.
that's a driver's decision there. Like
Yeah.
if you have oncoming traffic, or even if you can't see around the corner,
Yeah.
if there's somebody walking on the road, you might need to slow down to 5 kilometers an hour to safely make that pass without crossing into oncoming traffic. And I think that's where most of that feeling of safety comes from a road user. It's not a driver.
Why I
So-
don't walk it.
I'll put in something for that, and I think it's a really important improvement. Then the last of the longer term one, for new developments require public amenity packages that contribute to alternative transportation options. This is the, for instance, the thing that we just had a month or so ago, that thing that Emma brought, that I think it was in our September meeting,
Right.
called Active Transportation Guidelines, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Thought it was really good, but it's that sort of thing. But I did have somebody say, why isn't that short term? Let me have a look at my notes from,
Probably because the developments don't happen short-term, developments that will implement that.
but to make it happen right, let's see, here we go. Yes, so this is from Red. Red is, yeah, what the heck? This was from Parks. Yeah, Parks and Trails, they wanted me to move that into shorter term. Say for new developments require public amenity packages to contribute to alternative. We can make that happen now. So I'm gonna move that to short term. We'll see what council says.
Sorry, which part did you move to short term?
Don't worry about it, Steph.
Okay.
Well, because it came out of Parks and Trails, but it was
Okay.
the last one for new developments
Parks and
require
Trails.
public amenity, yeah.
Okay.
We're reading our Parks and Trails. Then support and advocacy, these are all probably all pretty obvious. Work transit, greasy fares. You want a reliable convenience, so this is Women Transportation Society, private vehicle through expanded full passenger marine. Oh, marine and express bus service. So, you know, this is what we're pushing all the time, but I gotta tell you about one more thing. So at the Climate Action Committee, so the Metro Vancouver Climate Action Committee, last week perhaps it was, or maybe 2 weeks ago, I forget. There's a proposal to have, because one of the councillors for, I forget, one of the communities over there pushing to have an electric foot passenger service to serve like as a bus, a boat bus, to going up the Fraser River, just for the communities along the Fraser. And it'd be electric, and there's some people who are making electric boats. Obviously, electric ships are harder, like to, electrify our ship, it's doable, but harder. But an electric foot passenger boat is a much smaller thing. So I then had a motion that, so Metro Vancouver is looking into two things. They've got this document here, Climate 2050, and they've also got, I don't have it with me, Metro Vancouver 2040, which is a regional land use plan, and that now is being worked into Metro Vancouver 2050. So in both of those documents, staff has been directed to look into options for Bowen residents for, and this is then both BC Ferries and Transit is the tricky part, for electric foot passenger service for commuters. So more will come on that. So that's all this boat stuff.
Great.
And then commuter areas and transit development. Oh yeah, work with community. The last one, a comprehensive and possibly fare-free public transit system that serves all island neighborhoods and aligns with new options for passenger marine service. Like that's really important. But how it's going to happen, it depends on TransLink. The fare-free part, some people really push that. I'm more interested, if I had to give up, do we cover all the island or do we make it fare-free? My preference is for all the island rather than fare-free. Other people say the opposite. So that's why I kind of put both of them in there. We'll see what happens. But it's going to take more money to get the South Rolling supported by transit, especially when you're low density like we are and so on. It's going to be more money to make it free. Where's the money going to come from? As Councillor Moore asked me, and of course we have to know. So it's in there for long term, what happens, whether we get it fair free, whether we get more. So any other suggestions on section 1? I think that's a huge improvement along the bikes. So section 2, the transition to low and zero emission transportation options. So that's, it's not up to us to buy zero emission cars, it's up to the residents. How do we facilitate that? And that's by, so the first two, so we've got a proposal for new rental homes in where that parking lot is. So one of the things we would ask them to do, according to this one, is to wire the new homes to be capable of providing level 2 charging. So they don't buy the charger. The chargers are expensive, but you don't want to be redoing the wiring 7 years from now when everybody suddenly has, e-vehicles, even in, rental homes or where lower cost rental homes. But you put the wiring in now, and that doesn't cost much money. So
people in low income housing is going to have electric cars.
Yes, because everyone will have electric cars.
Or
but they're not now.
Or they'll be taking transit.
Yeah, or they'll be taking. They're not going to have a couple of things. One of the things we approved, and it was in the minutes here, is that they don't have to have as much parking as is normally required. Because the assumption is you've got something that's really close to transit, you can walk here and there, and it's rental, supposed to be lower income, so maybe you don't need, to have cars really expensive. So you're right, but in lower income housing, yeah, they're not going to have electric cars right now. But 5 years from now, 6 years, 7 years now, I'm not sure. So when electric cars become the way that most people are getting around if they have a car, you don't want to then to be digging up the concrete to put the wiring in for electric service. That's all.
Yes.
When it comes, you can just
Get
put
the wiring in.
Yeah, get the wiring. So that's what that point is. And it's the same thing for houses, the family homes, level 2 charging. So what level 2 charging is? That's the like you have for your dryer. Right, like level 1 is like that outlet right there, and for some people can charge their cars enough just with that, but it's it might be touch and go depending on the commute that they have. So that's why we put level 2 charging in. But again, it's not having to put the charger.
It's no downside to it.
It's just putting in the wiring so that you can do it down the road. And so, but to your point about the affordability of electric cars, I was at a conference a couple of months ago, and one of the real issues around electric cars, electric mobility, one of the real issues is social fairness around this, because there are there are grants for people to buy brand new electric cars, but there aren't grants, haven't been grants for people to buy used electric cars. So there's a push for that sort of thing, so that the used market,
It's actually not true here.
yeah, which isn't true. You can do the used now?
Used, there
I
is.
think I heard that had been changed, yeah.
I don't think it's been changed. I think it's always been that the new car grants exist as well as the used car grants. I think the problem is that our EV BC program is run through car dealerships. It's not something you can get on the private used market.
Right.
So basically, you don't get any real benefit from it. But the program does have used cars.
Yeah.
So
that whole social equity side of it is really important and it needs to be developed. But electric cars are brand new, pretty brand new, and of course it's sort of, the really expensive ones, they're sort of kind of what people sort of see, but there's lots more of them developing and they will over time. And what is it, BC, by 2030, all of them have to be electric or sold, is that what it is? And part of the new BC's plan, I think it's
something like that.
All the,
all the new cars have to be electric.
oh, okay.
I think
By
it's
2030?
I think it's by 2030, yeah, so it's coming. And so that's what these are about.
So if they implement, there's gonna have to be a scrap program again.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that you've got to ditch your other car, but any new cars that are sold have to be electric is the idea. What's really important here is that the target, and I can show you the science on it if you need to, but the target of zero emissions by 2050 is extremely difficult, but it clarifies things. Like when you've got, the current target for BC is 80% by 2050. So you say, okay, well, we can lose a bit here and gain a bit there. But to be zero by 2050, it means anything that's long-lived capital, such as new community centers, should be prepared to be zero emissions. So it's really clarifies the mind about the whole thing. It's that everything's got to be zero emissions or negative emissions to make up for what simply you can't do, which is really quite challenging. Okay, longer term, one of the things that was raised by, I think it was Will Husby, so buses are we're starting to see e-buses. So, that last point, look for opportunities to develop fast charging stations are going to support the introduction of heavy-duty e-vehicles such as buses. Fast charging, that's the direct current. These are expensive and hard. These are the things that Volkswagen is putting in across the country to make up for their sins on the dirty diesels. So there'll be grants and things that'll come over time, so that's down the road a little bit. That's about, and they're expensive, and they'll do a big thing fast. And then this idea, the support and advocacy, maybe assured loading for zero-emission vehicles, consider working this over time, and the zero-emission greenhouse gas.
Are we voting on this, or because I know Tyler, you made some good points just in terms of that van pool being actually way better than a guy who buys a new Tesla.
Yeah,
Like
I'm against
one
the,
person driving a Tesla compared to 5 people in a van.
I'm against the BC Ferries point just for the social equity of it and the fact that I think that's a statement without any outcome because we already have more, like how many spots are you gonna make guaranteed loading on the ferry off one?
Yeah.
More than 2? Because right now on my commuter ferry there's 4 electric vehicles every day.
Yeah. I know this is a quick win, but if you're gonna suggest, and I don't say you, because I believe in this too, but if we're moving to everyone in electric vehicles, we shouldn't put that electric vehicles get capacity over people who just can't afford to buy their electric vehicle. They're driving their 20-year-old micro.
Yeah.
I don't like
If
that.
you put 4 people in that micro, they're a lot better off than the Model X with the one guy and then driving to Caulfield.
Yeah.
So I'm strongly opposed to that.
I'm happy to pitch in. Yeah, no, if this is your recommendation, I'm gonna put it as your recommendation and we'll
I'm
see.
keeping track.
Yeah. But I could replace that with something.
I mean, anything that's, I think the problem here is that the ferry is far too valuable to allow, to hand out things that aren't socially equitable.
Yeah.
It's so vital to our livelihoods that if we're gonna make a policy or a suggestion around it, it should be completely socially equitable, and we're a long way off of that on electric vehicle ownership, and by the time we get there, this will be a moot point. like, well, like you said, there'll be so many electric vehicles,
Yes.
you can't take 50%.
You can't.
You can't encourage anybody back.
I think that's great feedback,
Yeah.
super feedback.
But there's other
Van
things,
pool in instead, or?
I mean, I would promote something about high occupant vehicles like they do for the refit, where if you've got a full car, maybe there's some room there to give people priority. But
I think we should avoid the priority altogether, because I
How
would
do you
hate
do
to
it?
see someone returning from a chemotherapy appointment with one other person in the car, they don't have 3 people in the car. That person gets overloaded, and then a van pool of 4 healthy people get on the ferry. There's too many variables. Sometimes people are by themselves in their car for a perfectly legitimate reason. Ideally, they're with 4 other people, but there will be times when they have a medical appointment and they do not deserve to get
They just
overloaded.
dropped off
It's
by
just so,
kids.
it would be so frustrating, it would be infuriating, and it would be a nightmare for BC Ferries to. I think we need to be very careful what we ask for BC Ferries, and then kind of picking and choosing people and sending people down this lane and that lane is not one of them.
yeah, I put it right up there with choosing who on the island gets frustrating water.
Oh,
Like, you start taking away ferry
Yeah.
equity, and
Yeah.
I think it's just a huge, huge
Okay.
well,
issue,
it's because it's an essential service.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, okay, excellent, thanks. The last one, to reduce the need for transportation, so, the on-island composting system. So we're working on that, because like right now, our compost, goes to Pemberton. And,
And it's
I bought some
expensive.
this year from Abbotsford, that's where Mike brought it from. And, so we should be able to do that on the island. We're working on that, so another thing that I'm working on. And we should have a report on that shortly. Then development of an on-island healthcare center. So another obvious way to reduce the need for transportation by having things here. The next one, there's people are interested in doing this. So I don't know if you've seen the shared office space in the city, like the Hive and things like that. Like they're pretty cool. Where
Didn't this happen in Artisan Square briefly
Yeah.
in the last decade?
Yeah, it
did
did.
it?
Mhm.
Okay. I
Yeah,
didn't know.
actually Matthew Redcott.
Was it?
He was leasing space out.
Yeah. Okay.
People were,
Yeah,
using his space.
so
to
anyway,
work.
yeah, this kind of thing, right inside Cove, you're working home, but it gets kind of boring to be by yourself, and, if you're down in Sun Cove, you don't have power cuts, and you can have, better copiers and, that kind of stuff by having, even at receptions, maybe your power spot. So that's that. The then longer term,
On
Yeah.
the shared workspace.
yeah,
If we did end up with a community center and we've got space in there that's not being used, offering study space or workspace on an island that's not in your home with 2 kids
Yeah.
for people, like just allowing people use of planned public spaces. Because I think one of the critiques we get, or I see on the community center is like, what's this room used for already that you can't find a place on island for? And maybe that kind of policy could be worked into future municipal buildings as well when spaces aren't being used.
maybe the second bullet, facilitate the development of on-island healthcare center and a community center. Community center really fits into the same category,
Yeah.
because there are all kinds of things that you can, do at the community center rather than heading into Vancouver, to see a show or whatever it might be. So I could just leave it at that, or I could elaborate on the community center a bit.
Up to you.
I
It's
guess
just
we're
right
all-
now the recommendation has zoning for planning designations to encourage the development of shared. But maybe this is not just planning of municipal zoning, but also policy regarding public spaces that facilitate that kind of use.
I'll see if I can go
It's
some
after
Yeah.
9 o'clock. It's after 9, Chair.
Yeah.
Can I just point out that I didn't support you very well in that having been skipped?
Oh, we skipped that letter from John
Yeah.
Fisher?
Yeah,
Like,
well,
that's-
we're
there's
done
maybe
all
that
the
next-
transportation parts, so I think we're okay. Like, I appreciate, if anyone has any other comments for the rest of this, just email them to me.
Can we do a little vote just to be?
Oh, yeah.
I just have 2 points,
It's
okay?
really good stuff.
Yeah.
That support road sharing initiatives that promote culture of active transportation, and that's section 2.4 be removed.
And I
Okay.
started something with the community center, I'm not sure.
Well, let's
what-
skip that one.
I feel also that Sean is just gonna fill that thing to whatever possible capacity.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Well,
of
you
energy
could
around getting that.
add community center to the health center in the
Oh,
bullet
okay.
point 2.
So,
Bullet point 2 of under 3, so 3, and then I should have the numbers.
3, 2, yeah,
Three,
I've got
three,
numbers
two.
for you.
Yeah. Add community center to the healthcare center.
Okay.
It fits in perfect.
Perfect, okay.
Okay. Done, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Don't vote. Okay,
All in favor? Okay.
Okay. Cool.
So do we need to jump back to John? I mean, we kind of talked about John Kerr's topic in the passing.
Yeah.
Where is
Where
it?
is it?
so
Page-
section
Here we go.
7.2.
Page 14 of 19.
So,
So this is the one I was thinking of. Like if we have, I hate to see our buses wandering around largely empty, and to have an even bigger bus wandering around largely empty would be really sad to see. But I just hate to see people being turned away when they get stand.
But is that only in the summertime? Do we
Yeah.
have to increase the bus service in the summertime?
Maybe if we have to.
I think Emma already said that they couldn't do that with the turnaround time.
More bus
And
than.
service hours, there's a budget, there's a whole bunch of
There was a
limitations
whole bunch of
there.
reasons why.
Well, maybe we could just make a quick action item from this to check out the handrails. Just be 100% sure that we know why that bus is holding 24 people.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that. Put that as an action item. For me, I'll contact staff and to ask about the possibility of increasing, using handrails or hand,
Those,
Are?
those,
Bars or
or
whatever.
those, just even those.
Or the
rubber
hanging
holders
things you get rid
would
of, yeah.
Probably be.
so
Some sort of,
installing those or just getting a bus that has those?
Either way.
either way, find a way of increasing
Yeah, we
capacity.
find a way to make it happen.
So that stand,
Yeah.
people can stand on the buses and be considered safe.
Or get more than 24 people on a community shuttle.
Yeah, get more than 24 people, maybe shuttle for these high demand times.
So in essence, this is gonna carry over a little bit, so a
Yeah.
bit of research and then.
Yeah, so I'll check with them, I'll talk about it, we'll see, okay, is this even possible? Surely it's possible. I mean, it just seems so absurd to be standing at 100 kilometers an hour considered safe
Yes.
and not 40 kilometers an
Mind you, road is all.
It's true. hour. It is, you're right.
Okay.
Do you have anything else?
So you have to-
We have updates.
Oh, so, sorry. Sometimes there are resolutions from council that just get added onto the information items and no one reads them, so I started just
Yeah, that's
putting
good.
them with David's name so he can speak to them.
Well, first,
It's
is
like, you got some
Jason,
action here. You got some,
made some things
yeah.
spill over. Is Jason still on the line?
Oh, sorry, I got the very. Lisa?
We lose him?
Jason?
He probably went home.
Oh, because he was in Ocean Bay.
Yeah, and he was probably on the ferry.
Yeah.
He should have chimed, he was quiet for a long time and then chimed
So-
in.
Yeah. Whoa.
Okay, so I'll give an update to him even though he's not here right now. We did get, BC Ferries liked the idea of a second indicator light up the hill. However, they gave us a letter back and I'm not sure if we have that one yet. If not, I'll make sure I forward that. Or is that what I'm holding?
Is that what that
I
is?
think that's what I'm holding.
The printer jammed when you guys have came in, so there's only one copy.
Okay, so we do have this letter of impact from Darren, basically saying that their staff is willing to help us do it, but they specifically said they don't want to invest in infrastructure not on their property. So they are willing to help with the signal, figuring out how to tie into their system, but as for installing another screen up here, doesn't sound like they'd be supportive of that solution, but if Jason wanted to do what he originally suggested and figure out his own solar powered solution that just needs to tie in, there is support for that. So,
How is he gonna make it work?
well, we just need to figure out how to get the signal from BC Ferries
Right.
to a simple receiver up the hill that could turn on a blinking solar light or something to say that we're loading.
But who would, so that would be on municipal land,
Mhm.
and so municipality would buy some of this equipment?
Basically, Jason or another volunteer would have to volunteer to design this setup, ask for a little bit of money to put it together,
Alright.
and then put it on municipal land.
Okay, so it'll continue in the action items for a little while, okay.
Yeah.
So what do we do? Sorry, what's happening now?
So Jason.
Talk to Public Works about this, or Jason's designing something?
Well, Jason's not here, so Tyler will follow up with
Okay,
Jason.
thank you.
And then we do, I mean, half the room here was at the ferry meeting.
I wasn't, because it was, yeah, I missed that.
Do you want me to skim through the topics covered, or just make an action item for me to get the minutes from Melanie to us?
The minutes is good.
Yeah,
You were there, weren't you?
I was there, yeah.
yeah,
I don't need to hear about it.
yeah,
So that's that, I think.
yeah. And I think Melanie did send some minutes around, didn't she? Or
I
She
saw
sent
something
draft
from-
minutes to the FAC.
Oh, I see.
But I don't think that's gone to,
I read something from Melanie.
Yeah, I read something from Melanie, and the whole thing seems
Screaming
fairly
me.
inconsequential, like, no big,
no, it was not a very
Informative.
controversial
yeah,
meeting or consequential meeting.
yeah,
Other than that they'd be happy to help us with our light project, but they're not gonna pay for it.
yeah.
So that's that one, and then now we're on to
Going home.
information items.
So the Miller Road pedestrian network safety,
So was that the,
that recommendation came from this committee, Scott mentioned it a few
oh,
weeks
yeah,
ago.
yeah,
And,
oh, yeah, this was the Bowen Island Rocks, or Miller Rocks.
Right.
This is, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
so 25,000 for improvements
Wow.
in there. I think that's already in the transportation.
That was already in the
Yeah,
transportation
yeah.
plan, yeah, so it's sitting in the budget, that 25K.
So urban systems is kind
But
of.
urban systems, it was interesting, I didn't quite, I read their report, and so it'll cost $6,259 plus GST just to do the report, which I thought,
That's
well,
crazy.
it's kind of a lot of money. But anyway, and then they had a draft of what it might cost to do it, and they showed a bunch of things, but I mean, they haven't even looked at it yet, so I didn't see that as worth that much.
Scott?
Is that needed for insurance reasons, because just for safety reasons, to also put rocks on the side of the road and there's an accident there? Does you have to have evidence of due diligence?
So that,
It's about
I guess,
rocks, I think.
I mean, it's probably only 40 hours of an engineer.
is that what it is, 40 hours in it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they'll look at that road and they'll see what we can do. I mean, it's really important.
Is this for
that-
Seven Hills?
Yeah, for Seven Hills. Seven Hills needs to be improved. It's,
Get that link to open.
yeah, I saw it. I read it.
Okay, so was it about the rocks or just in general?
In general,
Yeah.
they're gonna spend this amount of money to build, the first was a site visit, and then they'll go do this and that, and come up with a report. Then they had sort of a draft, which seemed really weird, of what the whole thing might cost, but they hadn't even looked at it yet, so how did they know?
Well, they had to throw you numbers so that you could
I
get a
guess.
budget.
Yeah,
So that you got 40 hours of consultant time there, and the budget we already had.
yeah. So we'll get a report that tells us what we can do about that whole thing, so it's great.
And then, Tyler, your cycling bylaw?
So the next one is one, Councillor Hawking reported that the TAC would like to see a bylaw. It was moved in a second of traveling, including proposal, rights, Calgary, therefore be it resolved that council directs staff to consider including a housing zone. Right, okay, yeah, that's the same, they're looking at it, okay, good.
You went there really fast.
Yeah, just, okay, we wanted council to do something, so council said, okay, and they direct the staff to go look into it.
And then it's about terminal development, you guys all know that.
Yeah, the one thing that I said at the meeting when the fellow came here and presented, I said, but when you're gonna do the Bowen one, don't come to us, come to us with.
Oh, well, we skipped that update.
Okay, I said, come to us with a clean piece of paper.
Yeah.
Don't come to us with a, hey, here's what we're proposing, and then we have to object.
We've told them that we want to see a blank piece of paper.
Okay.
And they've said that the waiting room's been pushed back and that there was a team that will be doing community engagement basically with a blank piece of paper. And that was communicated in the meeting.
Okay. Yeah, good. All right. Excellent. That's good news. That's really good.
Yeah, they were very accepting to all of our comments last meeting.
Very good.
What's my problem?
We're using our ferry for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, next meeting is January 9th, 7th?
January 7th.
January 7th?
Yeah, so
But
first.
it will be 2020, not 2019.
Thank you, that'll be happening a lot.
That's so
I know.
weird.
Yeah. So
I
there'll
have
be.
great hopes. Great hopes. We'll all have vision. Vision for the future.
Oh, sure. If you guys want to change the time or anything,
I'll be away.
no, I mean like in general, like, or Tuesdays, first Tuesday of the month, that works for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're okay being away or?
I'm away and I'll be back on the 9th.
Well, there are gonna be a few things from this agenda that are carried over, so you can send your comments.
Did Jason just pop back on?
Jason? He's out in the parking lot and walking in.
Please hang up.
We just lost him.
Okay,
Okay,
Thank you.
Adjourned?
Yes.
Best of the season, everybody.
Yeah. Yes.
Went to the finish?